Now this is what I'm talking about. At long last, I think the season is really starting to kick off now. Okay, so this is the beginnings, part 1 and 2, which brings us to 8 individual episodes out of the 14 they scheduled for this. So we're at the halfway point now. Yeah, I mean, everyone else has been saying it, and I completely agree. Easily the 2 best episodes of the season thus far. Definitely 2 of the best of The Legend of Korra. Some of my friends think they're the 2 best episodes in the entire series ever. I wouldn't quite put them above some of the really great episodes from The Last Airbender, but they are up there as 2 of the best episodes in any Avatar series yet. So what happens? Nothing with Tenzin. Nothing with Republic City. Couldn't care less. Nothing with the South Pole. Couldn't care less. This was all Korra regaining her memory with the help of, I guess they're the Fire Sages. Although they do, kind of interesting. One of them almost seems to have fire healing. When their elder sort of examines Korra, and almost it looks similar to the water healing technique, but it's with fire. So that was interesting. They raised sky bisons, which is kind of interesting. So all of it is Korra's lost her memory. She's been found by the sages. They immerse her in like this very spiritual water so that she can get her memory back. And that's all this is. It's her reaching in to connect with her past lives. We get bits of Aang, Roku, Kyoshi, and the dude before Kyoshi. Can't remember his name. And they tell her that she needs to understand what's going on with the dark spirits. She has to get in touch with Wan, the first Avatar. And that is the entirety of these 2 episodes. The story of Wan. He lived in a world where humans, as we learn over the course of the 2 episodes, the North and the South Pole connections between the human and the spirit world had eventually been broken through, and so more and more spirits had moved out into the human world, and the humans were sort of forced into these little pockets of these little cities, these little settlements protected by the lion turtles. I'm so happy we got the lion turtles back in this. It was great seeing those. So humanity's been driven into pockets of isolation. They don't even know that each pocket doesn't even know that the others exist, and everything else has been taken over by spirits, and everyone fears them. So whenever they go out for foraging or for anything like that, their individual turtles give them the protection of certain elements. So, a bit of a disconnect. This seems to be the origin of bending. People were able to get access to the powers of the elements before. I had recalled The Last Airbender. Maybe it wasn't as explicit as I thought it was, but I recall Last Airbender saying that people learn bending themselves, but maybe what it is that they got the power from the turtles, but the forms, bending as an art form, they probably then got from observing the badger moles, the ocean and the moon, the dragons, and the sky bisons. So that's my interpretation. So people can be given the abilities by the lion turtles, but they have to give them back. And there's no, it's not an art form. It's just very, they get the power fire so that they can just shoot fire at anything that attacks them. There's no form to it. And Juan is living in one of these city oases. He's a troublemaker and he's a thief, and he eventually tries to... He joins up with a volunteer group that are given the fire ability, but then he refuses to give it back, and he tries to lead a revolt. But he can't, because he's a gentle spirit, he can't go all the way, and he gives himself up so the others can escape. He's banished, but the turtle allows him to keep the power of fire to protect himself. So after a little bit of journeying, and we get a bit of the dangers of all the spirits that are there, really creative with the designs. A couple of them were huge ripoffs of Spirited Away. Like, those characters walk on, you're like, well, someone's a Miyazaki fan. But hey, if you're going to rip someone off, no harm ripping off a genius like Miyazaki. So he befriends a number of spirits. We see him meeting a dragon and using that as a way to develop the art of firebending. So he finds a way to befriend spirits and make them trust him. And then he goes off on his own in search of other people. But along the way, and this is where the big plot device comes in, along the way he comes across two spirits. I can't remember their names, but they're the spirits of lightness and darkness. And he's tricked by the spirit of darkness into separating them, which means that the spirit of darkness can roam off and be free, and the spirit of light is now going to get weaker and weaker until she's consumed by the spirit of darkness. So he allies himself with the spirit to make up for his mistake. They go to the different communities where the lion turtles give them the different elemental powers, and with the spirit there to show that this isn't just a greedy human, he's working with the spirits to try and fix this. He gains the power through the spirit. He gains the power. He gains the power of all four elements and tries to master them, because in a year's time, he and the good spirit, Varus, I think it was, have to... love the voices on both those spirits, but the light and the dark spirit, great voice acting. They have to learn to fight together, and he has to learn how to use all four of the elements and all of their different powers to be able to defeat this dark spirit before it permanently makes all spirits dark. Which would give the spirits the power to just wipe out humanity with or without elemental powers. Some of his friends run into a bunch of these turned evil spirits, and we find out they're annihilated. So that's the gist of it. Most of it is just him. We see him working with the spirit, learning the elements. We get a phenomenal fight scene. With this dark spirit, great climax, great everything, just definitely one of the best action scenes in the whole series. He seals the spirit away, closes the poles, he sends the spirits back to the spirit realm, closes the poles, and the assumption being that, a handful of spirits still have a connection, like the panda and the sun and the moon spirits stay over in this world, but most of the spirits go back to the spirit world, and that's why there's the divide there. And he closes them so that no one can get to where he sealed the dark spirit. Now, here's where the really interesting questions come in. What is Unalaq? Who's really controlling who? Did Unalaq happen across this in a legend and decide that he wants to control the dark spirit? Or is the dark spirit influencing him from its imprisonment? So some really interesting questions. We see Unalaq come out from the South Pole, which is apparently right near where the dark spirit is sealed away. So now the big question is, okay, what really is Unalaq's part? Varys, we could probably assume, is just allied with Unalaq, but Varys probably isn't tied to the bigger picture with the spirits. So that's the really interesting question that we're going to have to see how and when they answer that. Is Unalaq being controlled by the spirit, or is he trying to control the spirits himself? We don't know yet. So that's really good. It's such a wonderful way to add to this world that we've already seen. We already learned so much about it through The Last Airbender. Last Airbender, there's really a lot of information you can pick out about this world, and this gives us so much more. We see the early forms of human society. We hear about why there was initially conflict between humans and the spirits. And we find out why the Avatar is reborn. The spirit, to allow Wan to wield all the elements simultaneously. The good spirit essentially fuses her being with the soul of Wan, and that makes the Avatar... That's why the Avatar is both human and spirit. That's why the Avatar can go between each worlds. That's why the Avatar is reborn. It's not just a human soul. It's a human and a spirit combined into something completely unique. And that's why there's a regeneration cycle. And so it looks like now we're really getting into why. So it looks like it's not just human beings being abusive to nature and pissing off these spirits. It's not just that. It's also a question of They're now apparently approaching a time where the Dark Spirit will have enough strength to return again. So it seems like his power is already leaking out and turning some spirits dark. We don't know if Unalaq is helping him in this, or if Unalaq is trying to vie with him for control. We don't know that yet. But we're now starting to get a sense of, okay, this is not just people destroying the environment. This is not just a political conflict. This is more now. This is something that was going to happen anyway. There was going to be a day where the Dark Spirit would be strong enough to return, and the Avatar would, of course, be the one who'd have to deal with that. So that's interesting. That really, it's so much more to like sink your teeth into and to think about than all the petty stuff we've been seeing the last couple episodes. And no, part of what makes these 2 episodes great and it's kind of sad is no Korra being an idiot. Hopefully she's learned now. Please, God, let her be smart in the rest of the season. No characters who should know better making really stupid decisions like Lin Bei Fong, or Tenzin, or Mako, or Asami. These episodes were refreshing. It's a return to a lot of the older musical themes from The Last Airbender, which is always good. The art style of Wan's story is it's like a dream. The lines are softer, the colors aren't as solid. There's not as much stark detail to the people or to the land, so it really feels like you're looking at something through a dream lens. And it's beautiful. It's some of the most beautiful animation in the series thus far, and that's saying a lot because this series is full of drop-dead gorgeous animation. But these 2 episodes have some of the best. Just great episodes. They cram a lot of information in there. It almost feels like the episodes are moving a little too quickly, but never enough that it distracts you. It moves quickly, but not too quickly. A lot of information about Wan, about how he develops his powers. We get a very sad glimpse of the end of his life. People are still fighting. People just walk away from the turtles with these powers and immediately start fighting each other. And so the Avatar has to immediately step in. And so then we really get a sense of, we find out this was 10,000 years ago. So then you start thinking about, wow, 10,000 years of Avatars. And all over that time, the individual nations formed the art forms of bending. And the different sage communities grew up or developed with the express purpose of serving and of helping the Avatar. It's amazing story. We now have a lot more information about this wonderful, beautiful world that Mike and Brian have created for us. And now we're going to be jumping back into the thick of things in book 2. They might, who knows what into the planning of what they would show when, but I think it's really important we got this in the middle, because it brings a lot more clarity to what we've seen up till now. It gives a lot more depth to everything. It's not just a simple political conflict. There's something deeper going on here. And that's important because the political stuff has not been that interesting. So this gives us more to be interested in, and it gives us more questions to ask going forward, where the big questions after the past couple episodes have been, okay, so what's going on? There's a lot more interesting stuff for us to be looking for now. Like, what is the connection between Unalaq and the Dark Spirit? And there has to be some form of connection. So 2 of the best episodes so far. Wonderful episodes. And I'm much more excited for the rest of the season now than I was before. So I guess we'll continue with next week's episode. Not sure what that's going to be called. I'll see if they've released the title. But yeah, until next week.